While thus thinking, Dvi, two, Aksharam, syllables, Ekada, once upon a time, Ambhasi, in the water, Upashrinot, heard it nearby, Dvi, twice, Gaditam, uttered, Vachaha, words, Vibhu, the great, Sparsheshu, in the Sparsha letters, Yat, which, Sodasham, the 16th, Ekavimsham, and the 21st, Nishkincharanam, of the renounced order of life, Nripa, O king, Yat, what is, Dhanam, wealth, Vidhu, as it is known. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. While thus engaged in thinking in the water, Brahmaji heard twice from nearby 2 syllables joined together. One of the syllables was taken from the 16th and the other from the 21st of the Sparsha alphabets, and both joined to become the wealth of the renounced order of life. Purport. In the Sanskrit language, the consonant alphabets are divided into 2 divisions, namely the Sparsha Varnas and the Talavya Varnas. From Ka to Ma, the letters are known as the Sparsha Varnas, and the 16th of the group is called Ta, whereas the 21st letter is called Pa. So, when they are joined together, the word Tapa, or penance, is constructed. This penance is the beauty and wealth of the Brahmanas and the renounced order of life. According to the Bhagavatam philosophy, every human being is meant simply for this tapa and for no other business, because by penance only can one realize his self. And self-realization, not sense gratification, is the business of human life. This tapa or penance was begun from the very beginning of the creation, and it was first adopted by the Supreme Spiritual Master, Lord Brahma. By tapasya only can one get the profit of human life, and not by a polished civilization of animal life. The animal does not know anything except sense gratification in the jurisdiction of eat, drink, be merry, and enjoy. But the human being is meant to undergo tapasya for going back to Godhead, back home. When Lord Brahma was perplexed about how to construct the material manifestations in the universe and went down within the water to find out the means and the source of his lotus seat, he heard the word tapa vibrated twice. Taking the path of tapa is the second birth of the desiring disciple. The word upashrinot is very significant. It is similar to upanayana, or bringing the disciple nearer to the spiritual master for the path of tapa. So Brahmaji was thus initiated by Lord Krishna, and this fact is corroborated by Brahmaji himself in his book, the Brahma Samhita. In the Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma has sung in every verse, Govindamari Purusham Toham Bhajami. Thus Brahma was initiated by the Krishna mantra, by Lord Krishna himself, and thus he became a Vaishnava, or devotee of the Lord, before he was able to construct the huge universe. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita that Lord Brahma was initiated into the 18-letter Krishna mantra, which is generally accepted by all of the devotees of Lord Krishna. Srila Prabhupada is not revealing what this 18-letter Krishna mantra is, because it's one of the Gayatri's, Gopal Gayatri mantra. But if you take a second initiation, then you receive this mantra. We follow the same principle because we belong to the Brahma Sampradaya directly in the disciplic chain from Brahma to Narada, from Narada to Vyasa, from Vyasa to Madhva Muni, from Madhva Muni to Madhavendra Puri, from Madhavendra Puri to Ishwara Puri, from Ishwara Puri to Lord Chaitanya, and gradually to His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, our Divine Master. One who is thus initiated in the disciplic succession is able to achieve the same result or power of creation. Chanting of this holy mantra is the only shelter of the desireless pure devotee of the Lord. Simply by such tapasya or penance, the devotee of the Lord achieves all perfection, like Lord Brahma. So, Chintayan Dvi Aksharam Ekadam Tasya Upashrino Dvir Garitam Vacho Vibhu Spashishviya Chorisham Ekavimsham Iskinchananam Dripaya Dhanam Vidhu. While thus engaged in thinking in the water, Brahmaji heard twice from nearby 2 syllables joined together. One of the syllables was taken from the 16th and the other from the 21st of the Sparsha alphabet. And both joined to become the wealth of the renounced Lord of Life. Mukam karoti bhachalam mangalanayate grim. Yat kripatanaham bande Sri Guru Ninatarnam. It is interesting to note also, because in Panchatric literature, the letters of the Sanskrit alphabet, they're explained in different ways. And each letter is said to have a deity presiding over it. So in one Panchatric scripture called Lakshmi Tantra, which goes into great detail about alphabet and the significance of different sounds. So it's interesting to note that Ta is ruled over by Vairajya. So Vairajya is a name of Lord Brahma. And Pa is ruled over by Padmanabha. And Padmanabha is of course the name of Lord Vishnu. So this is, not that I'm saying this is extremely important, but it's just interesting. Ta, Pa. From the point of view of Lakshmi Tantra, then that is combining, it's a combination of the letter signifying Lord Brahma and the letter signifying Lord Vishnu. So, in the Mahabharata, near the end, after the war has been fought and decided, Maharaj Yudhisthira was, and this is also described here in Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto too, Maharaj Yudhisthira was very overcome with grief. He was a very, of course, he's Dharmaraj, so most saintly person, and very, very sensitive. Actually, on the battlefield, Karna rebuked Maharaj Yudhisthira. He was giving him an insult. It's an insult that we can understand would be considered an insult among Kshatriyas. Special Kshatriya type of insult. So he insulted Maharaj Yudhisthira by calling him a Brahmana. It's rather humorous. But saying you're too sensitive to be here. You see, you're too noble and pure and good, and you're not inclined to fight. You're not inclined to engagement in violence. So Karna said, I could kill you, because he had just defeated Yudhisthira. He said, I could kill you, but what's the use? You're not a real Kshatriya. So, Yudhisthira, after the battlefield, yes, unlike a regular Kshatriya who was very passionate, a regular Kshatriya would be very exultant, very happy that we have won, our side has won. But Yudhisthira, quite to the opposite, was very unhappy. And he was considering all of the persons who had died in the battle. Not only the persons, the horses, the elephants, all the creatures. And so he was considering how to expiate this sin, how to become relieved from such a great sin, as having been the leader of the side that won this battle. So it was proposed, there were different proposals made, but one was that he should go to Grandfather Bhishma, who was still lying on the battlefield, stuck to the earth by so many arrows of Arjuna. So we have an account of the instructions of Bhishma Dev to Yudhisthira, because this was the recommendation for Yudhisthira's becoming free of his grief and whatever sin that he thought was attached to him. Go hear from the great Mahajan Bhishma Dev, because Ashrinvatamaspakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana, to hear from a pure devotee is punya. It is in itself piety. So therefore he went there, and Bhishma Dev, of course, he had will over death. He had not left his body. He was waiting for the auspicious moment. Actually, he was waiting for Krishna to come with Maharaj Yudhisthira, so that he could leave his body not only at the right time by material calculation, astrological calculation, all that, but especially when to have Krishna standing before him, so that he could leave his body having darshan. So up to that point of Bhishma Dev leaving his body, and Bhishma Dev was speaking to Maharaj Yudhisthira. And we find this in Bhagavatam. It is a wide range of subjects. And in Mahabharata, it is even more widely ranging subjects are spoken of by Bhishma Dev to Yudhisthira. So one of the subject matters, interestingly enough, which I am going to speak on, it is the same subject matter that this verse and purport about, is about Brahma's creation. So Bhishma Dev, he cites a conversation between Bhrigu Muni and Bharadwaj. And they were discussing creation. So Bharadwaj had asked Bhrigu Muni, how did the creation come about? And Bhrigu Muni replied, just as we know from Bhagavatam, that Lord Garbhodakasha Vishnu laid down within the shell of the universe, and from the pores of his body water came out and filled the universe to one half. This is the water that is being explained here. And from the navel of Garbhodakasha Vishnu grew up this lotus, and the lotus opened, and within the lotus was displayed the subtle universal form. It is this subtle universal form that Lord Brahma, he refers to in his creation of the gross universe. This is Brahma's work that he's creating. He's doing the creation at the grossest stage. The creation has already been done by Vishnu to the subtle stage. In my website, I've been writing on psychology, so this has also come out in that study. So just like before we do anything physically, we first think about it. Well, not everything, of course. Some things are very spontaneous, but generally those things that require planning, that we have to think about now. So like that, the plan of the universe is already worked out by the Lord. and not even worked out, just manifest by his potency. And it's Brahma who needs to work things out. He appears on that lotus flower in ignorance, and he doesn't know what to do. So as described here, he climbs down the stem of the lotus and tries to find his origin, and he comes to the water, and from out of this water, as we're hearing here today, he hears the syllables tapa, and then he goes back up to the lotus and performs austerity. So this is also described in the Mahabharata. Now, we've heard here in Srila Prabhupada's purport that tapa is the wealth of the Brahmins and the wealth of the renounced order. So there's a very relevant point made by Bhishma Dev to Yudhisthira, that after Brahma became perfect in his austerities, after hearing tapa, he engaged in austerities for the length of one of his days, which is 4,300,000 years, 300 million years, sorry. And then he received the power, the tejas from the Lord to create. So his initial creation was such that all human beings were Brahmins. All human beings. You see, the whole creation initially was in the mode of goodness. So originally, all human beings were Brahmanas. And the orders, the three lower orders, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, appeared later. And how this all happened is described in Mahabharata. So, Bhishma explains that human beings, therefore, are originally one. You see, today, in the realm of politics, there's so much agitation about equality and oneness and this and that, equal opportunity, etc. So yes, originally human beings were all one in the sense of sharing the same nature. But by their activities, you see, which developed gradually, different activities developed, and so the human beings fell from the Brahminical level into different categories by their differentiated activities. And differentiated activities means activities contrary to this principle here, tapa, tapasya. So as human beings became more and more interested in sense gratification, actually, what's very interesting is that Bhishma Dev, in two places in his instructions, at least two places in his instructions to Yudhisthira, he states that the first step away from goodness, from this tapasya, was greed. He says it twice. So this greediness, and we know from many references in the scriptures how this greediness, it is the thing that, it is the fault that creeps into the Brahminical mind. Because the Brahmanas, yes, they're supposed to perform tapasya, they live by sacrifice, they live by charity, and they live by giving education to others. And they live under the mercy of the Lord. So they're supposed to perform tapasya, and that means to be satisfied. They do their duty, and with whatever they get from doing their duty, they should be satisfied. So sometimes, Brahmanas, they may have very, very little. Their existence may be very tenuous, meaning, from one day to the next, they do not know where their next meal will come from. So, if there's a slight tendency to impurity, then this is how it will manifest. That they get charity done, and they become greedy for it, greedily attached to it. And then this begins to affect how they execute their dharma. The other day when I was talking, citing Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, remember this about the Brahmana, and one person from the village came to him and said, "I've killed a spider, what shall I do?" And the Brahmana began to propose a rather elaborate prayashchitta ceremony by which this person could become free of the sin of killing a spider. The Brahmana said it's very serious. And of course that would mean that this person would have to pay a good deal of dakshina to the Brahmana to perform the ceremony. But then the person pointed out, well, your son also killed a spider, you didn't have to. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving this instance to show how even in the Brahminical order, deviation enters in the form of greediness. So Bhishma Dev, he mentions this twice. That this is the initial downfall. Greed enters. And as greed enters, then the mode of passion increases. And as the mode of passion increases, then two things appear. One is lust. This is in Bhagavad Gita. You see, Rajaguna Sarubhava. So kama esha, krodha esha. So lust appears and anger appears. So then you can see, it's quite logical, you can see how the Kshatriya mentality develops out of the Brahmana mentality. First, greed enters, and this stimulates the mode of passion. So then you get a new class, which is more lusty, which is more greedy, more lusty, and more prone to anger. So because all is not lost, it doesn't mean that they're demons. They're still quite pious. So, but then there's need. You see, there's need for a new department of Vedic knowledge as these classes manifest. You see, with each new class, that means more greed, more lust, and less knowledge, less Brahminical knowledge. And as Bhishma Dev points out, finally it comes to the point where people are just speaking whatever nonsense comes into their minds. They don't. There's a point where they stop referring to Vedic knowledge and just start speaking their own ideas. So, by this time, we're down in the Shudras, the most ignorant. So, Bhishma Dev explains that when this began to happen, then Brahma had to teach a new order of Vedic knowledge called Dandaniti. So, Niti, of course, means logical instruction, and Danda refers to the administration of a society. Danda actually means stick, rod of chastisement. So, when as people become more greedy and lusty and angry, then they cannot just be controlled by scripture. There has to be some force. And so this is how the whole Varna Ashram Dharma came out. As human beings degraded from the standard of Brahmana. So now we're in Kali Yuga. So in Kali Yuga, Dandaniti is, well, there is some kind of Dandaniti, there is some kind of social administration, laws, government. It is still there, but it is not Vedic. It is not according to Vedic injunctions. So the laws in Kali Yuga, as we can see now, they benefit the rich. Everything is bent towards economics and sense gratification. So these are not real dharmic laws at all. These These are laws that protect meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, intoxication. So people are not reformed, they're not purified by such kind of dandaniti as seen today. So practically, the real state of affairs is that there's no dandaniti. There's just plundering. There's just whoever can rise to the top can become the leader, get power at his hands, then whatever he says, that's considered to be the law. It's already in that state. You see, we can, in countries like here, Western countries, there's a democratic system which is a little bit keeps things in check. There's at least some system of votes and this and that, but the principle is already there. The Kali Yuga principle, that whoever can just somehow or other, Prabhupada says, somehow or other, by hook or by crook, rise to the top. And then they get the reins of power, and that's the law, just whatever that person says. And that's the way things are now. So yes, it is a very unfortunate state of affairs. So there's Lord Chaitanya's movement. We always speak about this. This is our mission. But at the same time, people have to be reformed. And can a person be reformed simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra? The answer to that question has to be a qualified yes. Srila Prabhupada in Chaitanya Charitamrita cites Srila Jiva Goswami as stating that yes, one can become completely purified simply by chanting the holy names of Krishna. In fact, one doesn't have to do anything else, not even accept a spiritual master. So then someone will say, well then what is all this? Well, all this is because that is very rarely seen. That someone simply by chanting Hare Krishna becomes completely pure. Because to reach the stage of complete purity, one has to chant without any offenses. And that's the problem. Anyone born in this Kali Yuga, why are we born in this Kali Yuga? Because we're offensive. So offensive nature is there. So therefore, as Srila Prabhupada says, in order to surrender to Krishna completely, because this is what is required, to chant the holy name of the Lord without any offense, one must have completely surrendered to Krishna. So in order to surrender to completely to Krishna, Srila Prabhupada says, one must have transcendental knowledge. So, and then in turn, to get transcendental knowledge, to have transcendental knowledge, one must have this Brahminical behavior. One must be established in what? Tapasya. This is the example we're seeing in Lord Brahma. He's yearning for this very transcendental knowledge, to know who he is, to know his origin, and to get this, he had to perform tapasya. So this is the step-by-step process. One cannot chant purely unless one is completely surrendered to Krishna. One cannot be completely surrendered to Krishna unless one has transcendental knowledge. And that's obvious. That's obvious because transcendental knowledge means to know who I am. I'm spirit soul. It's a spirit soul that must surrender to Krishna. And we have to know that we are spirit soul. You see, simply some emotionalism, blind emotionalism, that we hear there's God, Krishna, and all right, I'll surrender to him. But if one is not established transcendently, these emotions are impure, they're mixed up in the bodily and mental concepts of life. We won't know how to surrender to Krishna completely. Without our even wanting it, our approach to Krishna will be contaminated by material desires. We may not want that, but that is our state. So transcendental knowledge is necessary in order to surrender completely to Krishna. And then to gain transcendental knowledge, tapasya. And as Srila Prabhupada indicates, taking the path of tapa is the second birth of the desiring disciple. The word upashanot is very significant. It is similar to upanayana, or bringing the disciple nearer to the spiritual master for the path of tapa. See, so this is how one gains transcendental knowledge, by approaching the spiritual master, accepting initiation, following the rules and regulations. And this is tapa, and this is the means of transcendental knowledge. And again, by transcendental knowledge, that one can completely and purely surrender to Krishna. And in this way chant the Hare Krishna mantra without offense. So I will stop here. Happy Ekadasi. Are there any questions?
Guru Maharaj, could you elaborate a little bit how in our practical lives we can get deviated from this simple mind and practical mind?
How we can what? Get deviated by?
Deviated from this, like this simple mind and subject mind and like that. Like you mentioned, these other classes were manifested.
Elaborate a little bit. Well, I said that Bhishmadev said that it is greed. He says greed, he says an interesting thing, that greed and ignorance are the same. That ignorance is manifest as greed, or they are the same substance. So in the Brahminical order, Brahminical status means the status of knowledge, Brahminical knowledge or Vedic knowledge. So to fall down from that, it's a fall down in knowledge, which means ignorance creeps in. And ignorance enters the brahmanas in the form of greed. So we live a simple life, but there's this principle, like Srila Prabhupada mentions in one purport, that the poor man, he may have only 1 penny, but he's very attached to them. You see? So there is the story of Ramanujacharya's disciples. For example, he had brahmachari sannyasi disciples, and there was also a household couple who were his disciples. And there was some discussion, and the brahmachari sannyasis were showing themselves to be sort of proud and looking down upon the grihastas. So Ramanujacharya wanted to teach them a lesson. So on the one side he had the brahmacharis go, one brahmachari go in the night and take the bangles. He told him, take the bangles from the arms of this lady, his disciple, wife of one grihastha disciple, and bring these bangles to me. And so that was done. The person snuck in at night and stole away the bangles from one arm, and then she moved. And so then he ran out with just the bangles from one arm. He couldn't get them from the other arm. And in the meantime, Ramanujacharya, in the same night, had torn some amount of cloth from every one of the lungis and dhotis of his sannyasi brahmachari disciples. So just torn a strip so that they were shorter. So the next morning when they got up to put on their clothes, they saw someone had torn their cloth, and they all became upset, and they were arguing with them. Did you do this? Did you like this? So then Ramanujacharya, he called them in, and he explained that, no, I have torn your cloth. And just see, you're supposed to be so renounced, but you're attached to, you have very little, and that's nice, cloth, but you're so much attached to it. Now if you want to see a real example of renunciation, then come with me. So he brought them to the home of this household couple. This was very early in the morning, so they had also just gotten up. And the husband was there, talking with the wife. So they were, the brahmachari sannyasis were listening outside on the order of Ramanuja, could hear through the window. And the husband was saying, what happened to the bangles from your one arm? And the wife said, oh, in the night when one of Guru Maharaj's brahmachari disciples came in and was taking, I suppose he must have been taking on the order of Guru Maharaj. And they needed them for some purpose. And then husband asked, but why only from one arm? Well, she said, I was laying on my side. So one arm was above, that he could take back, and the other was below. So I was awake, I could see that he was doing this. So I wanted him to take from the other arm too. I rolled over, but then he got scared and ran out. And the husband said, foolish woman, why did you move? Now you've only been able to do half of the service that you could have done. So Ramanujacharya was saying, that is renunciation. So you see, tapasya means live very, very, very simply, but then it's defeated if we become attached to our simple standard of life. You see, attachment is attachment. So that's how ignorance starts to present. And that was explained by Bhishma to be the beginning of the fall down of the Brahmanas. Anything else? Yes?
Guru Maharaj, I'm curious about something you said on Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja Day. When you read the translation of this Krishna Help Me song, you said, note that Krishna addresses, Prabhupada addresses Krishna as my dear brother. What did you mean by that, Guru Maharaj?
I meant to note that Srila Prabhupada addresses Krishna as my dear brother. There has to be some more esoteric thing. I mean, that's what the translation says. That's what the original Bengali says. I'm just saying, note that. It's an indication of intimacy. Intimate relationship. Anything else? You usually have a question. Not today. Okay, thank you. Srila Prabhupada.